watching Sunrise on ANEKE TV. Now we're taking a look at our newspapers for today.
All right, and joining us this morning is Dr. Chigozie Anarado, development scientist and public affairs analyst. Doc, it's a pleasure to have you on Sunrise.
Good morning, Uche. Good morning, Deborah.
Good morning, sir.
And welcome to our viewers.
All right, Doc, before we get into the issues, let me ask my signature question. How is Nigeria treating you?
Well, you see, it is my attitude to Nigeria. Nigeria is not treating everybody, not just myself, but we survive in Nigeria. That means that the treatment we get from Nigeria is not the best we should get. But the attitude is more important than what we get from Nigeria. And the attitude is, we will survive.
We will survive.
Positive attitude.
That's a very big positive attitude. Thank you, Doc. Let's take a look at the headlines.
All right, now to our headlines for today. Our nation headline is saying, Electoral Act 2026 goes into effect. And from the Punch newspaper says, Electoral Act 2026, Tinubu defends assent, opposition raises hell. And from the Daily Trust is saying electoral law sign transparency questions linger. And on the Guardian paper headline says 2027 credibility battle shifts to ANEKE as Tinubu signs Electoral Act. And our paper today will be starting from the Punch newspaper, where the major headline says Tinubu defends assent, opposition raises hell. According to the Punch paper, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has defended his decision to sign the Electoral Act 2026 into law, describing it as necessary for strengthening Nigeria's democracy. However, opposition parties are not smiling. They are reportedly criticizing the certain provisions of the law, arguing that some clauses may weaken transparency rather than enhance it. He said political exchanges are already on the way, setting the stage for what could become a fierce pre-2027 election contest. Mr. Ocha, I would like to know your take.
All right. I will surprise my take on this issue when you have a doctor in the likes of Dr. Chigozie Anarado. You suppress your opinion and get an expert opinion on issues. We have a development scientist and a public affairs analyst. Doc, looking at this issue, President Tinubu has given the nation what he described as a gift. Now, with President Bola Tinubu signing the 2026 Electoral Act Amendment, how do you see this reshaping Nigeria's political landscape ahead of the 2027 general election?
Yeah, thank you, Uche. And once more, I thank our viewers. Uche, you said the president gave us a gift. What you didn't tell us was whether it was a French gift or an English gift.
Doc, that was in the words of Mr. President. He said it was a national gift.
Yes. We don't know whether it's a French gift or a Dutch gift or an English gift. And, we don't go into describing this gift. You can find out what those gifts portend. The truth of the matter is that yesterday was actually a dark spot on the lining in our march towards democratic improvement. That's the truth of the matter. Mr. President assessed himself and was clapping for himself. That's what he said. He had made progress. And I listened to Mr. President and I was appalled. With due respect to him and his office, I didn't understand how a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the largest black nation in the world, the most populous black African nation, the hope of Africa as it were, in 21st century in 2026 was telling Nigerians that we should query our technology and query our broadband system. The president, who is the chief executive officer in Nigeria, who is the commander-in-chief, whom Nigerians have entrusted with improving our infrastructure, who has been on the seat for 3 years now, almost, is telling us to go and query our technology infrastructure. That where are we technically? That was what I had my president saying. I should ordinarily ask my president, where are we technically? Why is it that in 2026, 5 years after we had made progress to the extent that the Independent National Electoral Commission had said that we had enough coverage to do 93% transmission when we were debating the 2022 electoral bill that later became the 2022 Electoral Act. And true to type, the general election in 2023, aside the mischief, which we do think was man-made, because the glitch that has been made notorious by ANEKE has not been explained to Nigerians up to today. In a same country, there should have been a public inquiry into the nature of the glitch, and will characterize the fingerprints of the technology during the election to actually see what really happened, if for nothing, to make progress. But all has been shrouded in darkness and opacity. Yet, we saw that initially, the National Assembly elections in 2023 were almost uploaded up online, and Nigerians saw the elections results real time. 4-5 years down the line, after the initial argument, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria was still boldly telling Nigerians that he had made history. That instead of computer talking to us as the final result, human beings will talk to us. I don't know if we have set time to interpret that the statement of Mr. President. Instead of computer, in this time and age, when in a country like United States, for example, the result could be called by a media house, CNN, CBS, any media house could actually put out the result projection without waiting for the Secretariat in charge of the election to announce, because the results were being seen real time. And you could project the winning party and the winning president even before it was announced because of the help of technology. Technology could give you the answers. And Mr. President was telling us that we didn't have to rely on technology, that we should rely on human beings who have proven themselves to be highly mischievous, unreliable, and misleading. And this is Nigeria that the rest of Africa is waiting to lead Africa. We are being told that, look, worse things could come. We could get to the level of Uganda, where internet will be shut down on the day of election, just so that we can satisfy the ambitions of those who come out to tell us that we have avoided hacking, quote and in quotes. Hack what? Which and Deborah and our viewers, we are not even talking about electronic voting. We are not talking, and we are still not talking about electronic collation of results. The amendment bill that Nigerians yearn for was to transmit the image of the form EC8A so that everybody could see what happened in a polling unit thousands of kilometers away from you if you so desire. That way transparency will be assured. That way post-electoral violences could be tamed. That way we could build confidence in our electoral process. That way we could attract foreign direct investment into our systems. But now, people are telling us about hacking. I don't know what they talk about, because maybe they didn't understand what Nigerians wanted. Maybe they didn't even understand what the proposals that took months, painstaking hard work of civil society, even the electoral umpire itself was represented in the committee, of the legislators who were positive minded, of even members of the judiciary who made inputs. And after all this, a bill was crafted to repeal and amend the 2022 Electoral Act. And that bill went after the first reading, second reading, it went out for public hearing where Nigerians saw it and made their inputs and said, this is what we want. At least the minimum. We could have asked for electronic voting, where I would either go out or sit in the comfort of my home and punch the party and candidate I want, and I will see the result reflect. But no, we probably do not, maybe we have not got ready for that kind of thing. We were saying, even the ones who vote manually, the ones that are counted and tallied manually, the results that are filled in, let us snap the results and send to an RFV portal so that in the process of manual collation, nobody had asked for electronic collation. In the process of manual collation, if there is any controversy about the result contained in the Form EC8A or Form EC8B or Form EC8C, the IREV could be referred to see what was transmitted from the polling units. And if, because Section 64 of the bill, I'm not talking about the Act now,
Okay.
because I've moved from bill to Act.
Act.
Section 64 of the proposed bill was that in the sub D was that in events where there was discrepancy between what was manually written in the from EC8A and what was transmitted, the one transmitted through the IRF will take precedence because he had been devoid of human interference in the movement process. And that is what the politicians were running away from. I don't know if Nigerians noticed the reluctance of the Senate when we were talking about the passage of the amendment bill. Incidentally, after the House of Rep had passed it in December, by January, when the Senate returned from a very long break, the longest break in National Assembly in the world, the English National Parliament returned to work on 3rd of January. The American Parliament returned to work on 3rd of January. Most parliaments, the South African parliaments around the world returned to work before the 5th of January. Nigerian Parliament, as out of the last week of January, had not come back to work. And at the end of the day, they will collect fat allowances. So after that long break, Christmas break, which they had just returned and they were waiting for the Salah and Easter break to proceed on Ramadan and Easter, they began to dilly-dally. And I saw the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, warning senators to be careful, that if they were not careful with that bill as it were, that, quote and unquote, we will regret it when we get to the tribunal. Unquote. I shrunk in my mind. What was the Senate President talking about? It was there and then that I made up my mind that the Senate was not interested in passing that electronic transmission of results. Subsequently, the rest is said to be history. The maneuvering that happened in the Senate, the initial justification by the Senate President that, we retained the clause in Electoral Act 2022. When the pressure came from Nigerians and civil society, he convened an emergency Senate and said, we will now pass it with a proviso. Is there a need for the proviso? My answer is no. Because beavers as an equipment, apart from having the capacity to accredit offline and online, it has the capacity to capture the image, and the moment you click send, you don't have access to the document again. The document would have been queued up for availability of internet, assuming it wasn't immediately available. And any movement to the slightest availability of internet is a small size document, a few kilobytes. This is up to 1 megabyte. It will go into the IRF. So that provision was totally unnecessary. In fact, it was, for me, it was an escape route to say, we can always say there is no network. Therefore, we will discard transmission. And we resort to manual manipulation. The word is mine.
Manual manipulation.
That's what it's obviously crafted to be, because we Nigerians we are ready to deal with manual collation. So far as we will have to do cross check on the IRF to see that what you have on the paper It's still the same thing that we have on the paper that we're looking at the image on the RF. But we saw the movement. The House of Rep, which had passed its own bill, started to make a vote force. Somersaulted into trying to reopen the bill. When it initially tried to reopen the bill, it met resistance across party lines. They went on recess. The harmonization committee, made up of 12 members of the Senate and 12 members of the House of Rep, were supposed to sit and harmonize. And in harmonization, you don't change anything, not one letter. It's either you take the version of the House of Rep or you take the version of the Senate. Knowing the danger in it, the harmonization committee did not sit. What we had was an emergency National Assembly convened for 2 days ago. As it was convened, the Senate was doing its own, the House of Rep was playing another game. Suddenly, a new version of the bill came in, and we saw the Deputy Speaker, who was presiding, now started considering an altered bill from the Electoral Committee that had already finished its work long time ago. The work was no longer within the rest of the Electoral Committee because a harmonization committee had been set. We saw a new work from the Electoral Committee, and the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Ben Carlo, was now doing what was supposed to be a clause-by-clause consideration as a batch-by-batch consideration. Section 1 to 10, the gavel will go. Section 11 to 20, the gavel will go. Section 21 to 30, the gavel will go. Section 31 to 40, the gavel will go. 41 to 60, the gavel will go. Which kind of parliament does this kind of work? In the glare of the whole world, even when the members were overwhelmingly shouting point of order, the next thing we heard was, oh, if you are an APC, go this way. If you are not, go the other way. It became a party blackmail. I am happy that the majority of the opposition lawmakers staged the walkout. That's the way it should be, to show their protest. Eventually, the shenanigan was passed. But like the high point of it was that, unlike what we see in the parliamentary processes, where after a bill shall have been passed, the votes and proceedings will be collected, approved, and the clerk of the National Assembly would transmit same to Mr. President, who ordinarily is expected to get an input from the Attorney General of the Federation and his advisors and move ahead to either sign or withhold his signature. But almost less than 24 hours after the bill had been passed, Mr. President appeared and signed. You would ask yourself, when did the voter proceedings got collected and moved to the president? When did the president read over 120-page documents in less than 24 hours in order to prepare his signature and he signed? What it tells me, or what it told me, was that this was more or less an executive plan. Mr. President was in the works, knew about what was going on, and he said he was keenly monitoring. And I don't think that he was not just monitoring, he was keenly processing, guarding what was happening in the National Assembly, until what was brought out from the works was what exactly he had instructed. And he did not even bother to look again, he signed. The danger is that as you and I speak, whether the opposition is blowing hot or cold, we are not even sure of what the amended act is. Because we live in a country where the National Assembly supposedly passes a law. By the time it goes to the presidency and out, you have a different version. We saw it in the tax laws. We saw it in other laws. So Nigerians are not even sure of what has been signed into law. until if they agree to show us the gazetted copies, because they might even decide to conceal the copies. If you make noise, they will tell you that you have not seen the gazettes or the gazetted copies. When we see the gazetted copies, we will be able to say exactly the real content of the new Electoral Act 2026. Because, I mean, I wouldn't know. Whatever we say now will be in the realm of conjectures, really. There's a section of the Act that is supposed to allow Nigerians to go to ANEKE website. So long as you have a voter identification number, VIN, you can download your voter's card if you misplace one.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be there. We're not sure if it's still there. By the time it appears in the Gazette. There is a section that is supposed to, section 84 or so, that is supposed to, that is where I am sure the political parties are going to run around very soon and ask for an amendment. Even the APC itself. The section talks about the mode of selecting candidates or electing candidates by the political parties, where it does say that the only modes allowed will be direct primaries or consensus. Now removing the indirect primaries. Delegate primaries will no longer be necessary. So that on the surface would look like it's a good move to curb vote buying that the vote buying that happens during the primaries where dollars are shared. But how political parties are going to grapple with it, whether they have enough structures, financing to undertake direct primaries, and whether consensus is not another way of forcing candidates on the people by the powers that be and political godfathers. We are going to see all those things. Right. So as it is, like I said in the beginning, it's a dark lining on the cloud in our march towards democratic improvement. However, I do think that as Nigerians, we will not abandon the struggle to the political class. The country belongs to Nigerians. And insofar as we insist that Nigerians should take control, we will be able to push the political class to the point where they accept that power belongs to the people. Because some people tend to give up that since they have smuggled in the proviso, which will give them the opportunity to now say there's no network or the technology is not working, therefore let us resort to ECA manually collated and manipulated. What my pain is that we want to remain on the turf where we continue to throw punches and hick scuffs. We continue to fight for the rating to be done. Whereas we could have allowed technology to save us that fight. Oh, you have to do the right thing. Once you transmit or watch it, you can't change it the moment it's online. But as it were, let us not despair. Let us not give up. We can still get things done. Time will come when this class of politicians will go and the new breed of politicians probably will come in. But the question is whether we are ready to make ourselves the agents of change.
Whether we are ready to make ourselves the agents of change. Yeah.
Because the society gets the leadership it deserves.
The society gets the leadership it deserves.
Absolutely.
Doc, listening to you, I have no doubts because you've painted a very vivid picture of a nation in a very dark spot.
Absolutely.
However, for the sake of emphasis, and I ask, a lot of critics argue that the amendment favors certain political actors. And I ask, in your view, what does this mean for fairness and transparency in Nigeria's electoral process?
Thank you, Chair. I honestly think that it's a setback for transparency. I think it's a setback for fairness. Having had the experience of 2023 and saw the uncharitable position taken by the Nigerian Supreme Court, because the laws, to my mind, for full declaration, I'm not a lawyer, but things are written in English language that we understand. The 2022 Electoral Act empowered ANEKE to use the technology that it deemed fit to run the election. And INEC brought up the beavers and the IRF as the technology that it will use and gave out a guideline, which the Electoral Act had empowered it to bring the guideline and use the technology that it didn't fit. And then it gave a guideline and said, this is the way things will be done. Results should be transmitted to the IRF. And when these IRF results were tendered in the courts, the Nigerian judiciary disappointed Nigerians by saying, oh, the IRF and the beavers were not explicitly captured in either the Electoral Act or the Nigerian Constitution. That the INEC guidelines were inferior were not laws, that they were inferior to our laws. A lot of us were disappointed. But if the Supreme Court speaks, if you want an orderly society, whether you like the decision or not, you will accept it. Nigerians grudgingly accepted that. And therefore began to bring in these technologies into the forefront of our laws. And that's why Nigerians angered and wanted the beavers, the electronic transmission of results, to be captured vividly in the 2026 Electoral Act by amending the 2022 Electoral Act. When we thought we were almost there, the Gospel led Senate, obviously orchestrated by the intent of Mr. President and the leaders of the APC. Because, I mean, personally, I am not giving to pandering to support of one party or criticism of another party. I have always faced the political class, irrespective of the political party they belong to. But this time around, the chicken has actually come home to roost. We have a president who came from the pro-democracy community, as it were. Even when some people believe that the election went the way it went, we thought that we were going to see activism in leadership, change that was going to be, profound, that will push us to the next level, that will get us away from, continually being the landlord of the third world country or countries, to move into the second and first world, as the likes of India, Brazil, Singapore, China, that prior to 1960 we were teetering together in the third world. But we're still there now. What do we have? A political party that has come out, openly making it look clear that they do not want that level of transparency in our electoral process. That's why I said that it's a setback for transparency. If there's a contest, people vote. We want to ensure that there's transparency in the voting. There's fairness. If I lose, I will see that I didn't quite do well enough to win. I didn't convince people to vote for me, and I will accept the results. Which are the listeners, if we were here in 2007, 2011, a little bit of 2015, the turgidity in 2015 was so much that we thought it was going to burst into another conflagration. But in 2007 and 2011, the problem we had was perception. One candidate will be doing well in one part of northern Nigeria. His followers would imagine that was how well he was doing in other parts of Nigeria. One candidate in one part of southern Nigeria will be doing very well on the election day. His followers will think that was how well he was doing in other parts of Nigeria. And once the results were announced, contrary to their perception of belief, there was an outbreak of violence, thinking that their candidate had been rigged out, whether real or imagined. violence would usually follow. We saw people die in post-election violence in 2007. We saw Nigerians, especially UCOM members, that went to offer service to their motherland and fatherland, die in post-election violence in 2011 because of the perception people had about who had been declared and who had won the election. That mischief would have been ostensibly cured by the electronic transmission of election results from the polling units to the IREV. Because a man sitting in Kara Namoda would see how the candidate is performing in Otuoke, in the Far Delta, in Ilesha, and the man sitting in Obeledu, Onisha, Amugo, will see how the other candidate is performing in Birnin Kebbi. And he can view the result and say, oh, I am supporting Mr. A. He has won 90% of the votes in my region. But see, in the other regions, he's getting less than 20% of the votes. These pigeons seem to have flown away from us. Quick tabulation will show everybody where the candidates stand. And you can't convince me to go into violence when I have seen that results emanating from another part of the country have not favored my candidate, even when he has done well in our locality. That is a missed opportunity, Chandebora. Now Nigeria, the leaders, APC leaders, have made Nigerians to miss in trying to consolidate on our improvement and moving further to the next level in actually our leadership selection process. Because we do accept the fact that the majority of our problems revolves around leadership and leadership selection. If we get clean pathway in the process of our leadership selection, everybody will know that if I get into power, if I get into leadership position, if I don't do well, the next election will be a judgment day for me. And I have no option than to struggle to impress the people and show, as they will say, all workings that I have done well in order to deserve a re-election. And once that begins to happen, what that does is that the people who are well-intentioned will begin to gravitate towards leadership because they know that the system has made it transparent, fair, and it is credible for them to emerge. And when they emerge, they have no option than to do good by the people. But if we missed, as we have missed the opportunity now, it is now possible that we'll continue to, group around, seeking for development, when we had opportunity to have pointed to where development was and moved towards it. Now, if people continue to manipulate elections, they will say, oh, no, there's no technology, no network. They will go and write results. Change what has happened at the polling units. I have had people, by the way, say, oh, all parties should have polling agents. If they have polling agents, they'll protect their results. I get appalled when I hear such arguments. Because it does mean that those who are making the argument actually do not understand where the rest of the world is. They are saying that we must continue to throw physical punches at each other. You must continue to fight to see that you don't add 0 to 15 to become 150. When ordinary technology would have made it impossible for you to add the 0. So you must gather people to stay around and continue to fight each other, kill each other, because, we know what happens. If you are strong politically in one enclave, you can shut out the other party agents from even coming into the collation center. We have seen that happen.
Sure.
They shut them out. In fact, they use even the instrumentality of the security agencies to ensure that the opposition parties do not come into the collation center because they have instrumental power.
Sure.
A question. So why would we continue to do this kind of thing to ourselves when we have opportunity to move forward? And tomorrow we will have a story to tell our children that we tried our best and our best was not good enough. We didn't try our best. So, to answer your question succinctly, it was a missed opportunity. He potent one step forward because I'm sure we're not where we used to be, but we have made a step forward and 2 steps backwards,
Backwards.
if you ask me.
Oh, Doc, indeed, the chicken has really come home to roost.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Moving on, let's take a look at what the Guardian newspaper has to say.
Okay.
All right, now next paper coming from the Guardian newspaper says 2027 credibility battle shifts to INEC as Tinubu signs Electoral Act. Now the Guardian reports that attention is now shifting to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, as the credibility battle ahead of 2027 intensifies. With the law signed, INEC now carries the responsibility of implementing it effectively. Political stakeholders, civil society groups and international observers are expected to scrutinize every step the Commission takes in preparation for the next general elections.
All right. Doc,
Yep.
you've been quite explicit and holistic on your approach to these issues.
Okay.
But looking at the headline of the Guardian newspaper, they're speaking directly to INEC. And I know you've touched on it, but for emphasis, I will still go again.
Yeah.
And I ask, how will the newly amended Electoral Act affect the role of INEC and the deployment of technologies like Vivas in ensuring credible, the word is credible, election?
Yeah, thank you, Uche. It will affect the work of INEC enormously. Positively or negatively, we will see that when it starts to happen. Because in building an institution, you have 2 arms, the legal framework and the human element. So the legal framework, as badly as it has been knocked, it's been knocked off, right? We're not going to deal with the human element.
Yeah.
Because part of the biggest problem in our society is the absence of characters in the people that run the system.
Sorry.
So,
Sorry, Doc.
Yep.
Sorry. You made a point now. The absence of
Character.
character.
In the people that run the
system.
public systems. Yeah.
Okay.
So the fight, I agree with Guardian, right?
Yeah.
It has shifted to INEC. Well, Professor Muftar has been put on the spot. Because one is to have law, another is to judiciously and painstakingly implement the laws. Those who are dubious, no matter how good the laws are, will still manipulate the laws to have a negative end. Now, there's a lot of elements in the supposed new law. Like I said, I maintain my position until we see the Gazette. We can speak to the Gazette when we see the Gazette, because we do not know what could have changed from the National Assembly to the presidential villa. You know, things would have fallen off and fallen in up on the road. We do not know. But assuming that what we know, making that assumption is what is, the number of days required to actually announce the dates and guidelines for the election has shifted from 360 days to 300 days. The time required for the political parties to submit their nominated candidates has shifted from 180 days to, I think it's if I'm right, 4 months, 120 days. The time required for INEC to publish the accepted list of candidates has shifted from 150 days to 60 days.
Sure.
That's what would have happened. Now, the time required for the funding of INEC for the purpose of the election has also changed. The question becomes, will INEC be able to meet up with the new challenges? If you are to know the number of candidates or the parties that are actually participating in the election by way of nominating candidates in just 4 months to the election, that means you have just 4 months to go and print the ballot papers for that particular election. Almost always, the ballot papers are printed outside Nigeria, probably for security reasons and safety reasons. Would INEC be able to meet up with the challenge, the logistic challenge of printing and delivering the ballot papers? These are the challenges that INEC will have to deal with. Yes, will INEC accept? Because the section 60 sub 3 says provided there is network. INEC still has a chance of saying in the guidelines, polling presiding officer, the guideline says that the moment you collect the result right in the from EC8A, you must transmit it after capturing it with the beavers to the IRF for your work to be complete. And INEC can say, look, for you, because that's an open question that supposed electoral act 2026 has left. Who makes the call to say that transmission is impossible? It's an open-ended, a question with an open-ended answer. Is it the presiding officer that will say there's no technological provision for me to transmit? I will not transmit. That's when INEC can come in and say, look, for you to say this, you must get clearance from the supervisor, the electoral officer in the local government, who could be compromised. We must not overlook that. Nigerians are open to compromise. I mean, sometimes we are the cause of our problems. You can get a clearance from the party agents that are available to agree with you that there's no, that there's the environment for transmission does not exist. Even when we are convinced that there's no environment that can stop transmission. So if Professor Moviton wants to use the opportunity that history has presented to him to adjudicate it, to acquit himself as being on the positive side of history and posterity, in the guidelines, he can still get INEC to say, you must capture the results and transmit. Because part of section 64 was saying before, when I knew it, that any presiding officer who failed to transmit the result was liable to an offense and was punishable. We don't know whether that is still existing in what would have been signed by Mr. President.
Yeah.
If, assuming that is, and they can hem on it and say, you are presiding officer, in the guidelines of the election, you must capture and transmit the results. If that's the guideline to the other presiding officer, now for you to make that claim that the supervisor, the electoral officer, and all the party agents available must agree in writing that there is no network, that would have made it more difficult for those who actually had planned to use a no network or no transmission situation to manipulate the system during the process of collation, not to do their job. So I agree that the fight has shifted to INEC, because if INEC decides to supervise a free, fair and credible election, the opportunity still exists, even when some of the doors have been closed. We're in this country when we conducted the election, the 1993 election, by open ballot system where we counted persons.
Option A4.
Option A4. I tell people that today you cannot use option A4 again because it's not a fair method. When it happened, it probably would be a fair method. Because today, I might find it difficult to vote against my brother, even when my brother is not qualified, or my sister, because I will have to raise my hand and get counted. When we get home, it probably will be a family problem. But if I had a secret ballot system, even if it's my twin brother, who I know is not capable to hold the position, I can go into the polling booth and vote against him and keep what I voted to myself. Also, the truth of the matter is that we had that period 1993, and we had an election, and the election was adjudged to be credible, free and fair. Today, a responsible, committed electoral officer in the name of by the national chairman, national commissioners, resident electoral commissioners, electoral officers, supervisors, ad hoc staff, and I bring it to the table of Nigerians. We do know that when the chips are down, INEC does not have enough manpower to run the election. Ad hoc staff are recruited into INEC. It may be you and I. It may be you and I. And at the end of the day, we make ourselves available for compromise by the political class. After compromising the system, we'll come back to shout bad governance. Oh, people have rigged the election. I am an academic, and I have seen my colleagues who have participated in election processes. Some have confessed that they were given $5,000, $2,000. I mean, I don't play ostrich. We can't continue to play ostrich. You are a lecturer in Nigerian University, College of Education, Polytechnic, or one institution or the other, public servant. You are made a returning officer. You are a supervising officer, collation officer, at one stage or the other. Politician gives you money. You think it's big money. It's a price to sell. You collect the bribe. You compromise the process and the system. You get the wrong person who had no business coming here to power, elected to be in position. Tomorrow you begin to shout that, oh, education has not been funded. The healthcare has not been funded. Infrastructure development has not been funded. The politicians are corrupt. They are stealing our money. Our children cannot go to school. We don't even have jobs after we have gone to school. Oh, Nigerian society is not working. There is no electricity. You are the architect of the problem. So you see why it's a huge statement made by a Guardian that the attention would have shifted to INEC, because INEC now, as a corporate entity, includes both the leadership of INEC, the staff of INEC, and the ad hoc staff that will be recruited from among Nigerian people who seem to be complaining now. You remember when I said that a society gets the leadership it deserves?
Yeah.
If you and I make that decision to change, to be the agent of change, that if I am the returning officer and I am in charge of announcing the results, and you tell me that the powers that be has told me to announce a wrong thing, I will tell you to tell the powers that be to meet me in heaven. That's why today I have not forgiven Professor
Humphrey Wilson.
No, not Humphrey Wilson.
Okay.
What happened in Enugu in 2023? Professor Madman, also, if I get his name correctly.
Okay.
Or the Professor of Agriculture, Monique.
Okay.
Who said that his hands were tied, that the powers, this was result I was given to announce from the above. I said, what kind of a professor is that? He can't tell me. I mean, the television, the savior was there. The TV cameras were all upon you. If I were in his position, I will get the real result and say, ladies and gentlemen, if I announce this result, I'm not able to get home. Pray for me to get to heaven, or wherever that is better. I'm going to announce the right result. And I can assure you, with the world viewing the cameras of the TV, nothing was going to happen to him. At least not immediately. So we all miss the chances to make history, to make the changes that our children and posterity will live to see. Can you imagine if Professor Oti of the Federal University of Technology had not stood our ground in Abia State? Have you imagined for a second that the results, the governorship of Abia State would have been different by now?
Definitely.
I'm not saying that, look, I don't belong to the class that claps to Oti by the governor Oti. Because when it's time to gather the reeds and remove the corn from the chaff, who will know how well he has done. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of persons are saying that things have improved for the beta in Abia. But the point I'm making is that there was a woman, and thumbs up to the woman, if that is the clear statistics of what the women are. There was a woman, in the face of adversities, stood her ground and said, thus far, no more. The right thing I shall do. And went ahead to announce the result against the pressures. If we have 70% of Nigerians, like the biblical Nineveh, who are ready to stand up and say, thus far, no more. The right thing we shall do. Give Nigeria 10 years, Nigeria will become a first world country. So, to that extent that opportunities have been missed, yet opportunities still exist for ANEKE to do the right thing, for those of us who get opportunities to join ANEKE one way or the other, to use our positions to do the right thing and not capitulate to the extent of saying, what shall I do now? They were giving orders and I collected. If I don't collect, they will kill me. Am I the only person that will change Nigeria? Who told you? The collective image of a country is as a result of aggregation of our individual characters. That's the escapism that you see in Nigerians. Everybody tells you, am I the person that will change Nigeria? It is what is prevalent. Yet, that same person turns the corner and starts to complain. You are the person that will change Nigeria, Deborah. Which you are the person that will change Nigeria. I am the person that will change Nigeria. And the next person, the cameraman, is the person that will change Nigeria. If we all agree that we will change Nigeria, Nigeria is going to be changed. So the political class is smaller in number. And that's why I said, if you're on election day, you accept Oban Cook and vote the other way. If you are given 10,000 naira and you sell your votes, or if they share a pa, and you go there and clap Ojebego and whether on your mandate or above your mandate, that's if you shout all those things, be sure that like the man in the Bible, that you have sold your birthright. And if you sell your birthright, be sure to live with it. So we have had a struggle to change the electoral laws to make it easier. The political class brazenly refused. And they turn around to tell us they have made history. We know that they have made history in a negative sense. The opportunity still remains there. Or we still have a smaller window of opportunity to still get things done, rightly. I was telling you that if we don't take time, we'll slip to the level of Uganda, Zimbabwe, Cameroon, where on the election day you don't see it, the internet is shut down. The reason for shutting down the internet is to ensure that nobody sees what is going on. Because if we are saying no technology, it is possible that day, they say to avoid hacking, we will shut down the internet. Or they even give a clandestine instruction to the MNOs and internet service providers to shut down the internet so that nobody sees how the manipulation goes. They will tell you, you see, we wanted to transmit, but the truth of the matter is that the network has been shut down. So let us do with what we have. We will have to speak to human beings. Everybody who wants to collapse the system will find a reason to hang on to do so. I agree that the focus should be on the ANEKE. Professor Amupiton knows that history and posterity are beckoning on him. They will have to write on him. They have written on Mahmoud Yakubu. No matter what Mahmoud Yakubu does, he had a bright chance, a bright-minded fellow, respectable as he was, but he stepped into the booby trap. And today, history has written very badly about him. Posterity has refused to forgive him. The likes of Morisiu is in the bad books of history, no matter what he tries to do. As a man I respect in the field of science, and research. But because he was an electoral umpire, history has written very badly of him. Posterity has put him in a dark corner. But we have the likes of Humphrey Nwosu, who in eternity history will remember him as a man who did good by the people, a man who had the courage to do the right thing, and posterity will continue to hold him as a shining candlelight that people will say with. So everybody has an opportunity. The likes of Jega, no matter what people think, Jega was able to have the courage to step out and do what people thought was difficult to do. And an incumbent lost election, even on the re-election bid, no matter the sentiment you want to bring to it. So, when you have opportunity, Professor Mupiton, I want to use the opportunity to say that you have an opportunity to be on the right side of history and posterity. Let us see how he's going to handle it.
All right. Prof, you've spoken quite eloquently about this issue. There's no doubt that you've cleared every doubt. Every hidden spot has been made quite clear. But Doc, before I let you go on this very issue, you've spoken to the legislature, we've looked at the amendments, we've spoken to ANEKE. Now, Doc, let's look at the implication. What implication does this electoral amendment have for party politics, candidate selection, and voter confidence nationwide?
Yes, I alluded to it. Again, when we see what has been signed into law, we probably will speak more to it.
All right.
However, the law, as we conjecture it, has changed the nature of party politics. You know, before now, when parties resorted to delegate conferences or conventions, where delegates will come together and elect the ticket holder of the party, what we had was a situation where people scampered for delegate control. In political parties, people were trying to manipulate to own delegates. They will tell you that these delegates belong to Mr. and Mrs. A. Mr. and Mrs. B will be struggling to buy these delegates. You will see the kind of horse trading that goes on during primary election. People will be moving from one hotel to the other, in a bid to be captured in order to vote for a particular candidate. Not on the basis of capacity and capability, character and credibility, but on the basis of how much he has brought. It got to a point where Naira had become very untenable, too light to be carried around. They resorted to US dollars. And every time we neared party primaries, the exchange rates of Naira drops because dollar would have been floating into the system. People will be changing dollars here and there after delegates. In fact, people commit blue murder to get into the list of delegates because they know that after the delegate election they will buy new cars and go back to shout blue murder themselves. If the law says, as we see it now, that the mode of electing candidates will be by direct primaries and consensus, it would have changed a lot of things. One, you wouldn't have to buy delegates alone. You will not have to talk to people. It will be more difficult to buy people who are going to queue up. We saw this in in fact, it was during the Buhari era that we saw this advent, talking about direct primaries, and we saw it more in 2022, 23. It may not totally remove buying the votes of party members to elect their flag bearers, but it has become more difficult because if you would have had 300 delegates for senatorial election, now you may have 300,000 people. It is more difficult to bribe 300,000 people. How much money are you going to throw around? In gubernatorial primaries, if you had to deal with 500 delegates, now you may have to deal with 500,000 people or 400,000 people. And there are people who have become behemoths of themselves. They were statutory delegates, even though the 2022 Electoral Act actually sneaked out the statutory delegates without the politicians knowing. And they were crying when the time came. So those statutory delegates saw themselves as behemoths. The people that you must, the idols that you must worship for you to get tickets. And it was a veritable platform for corruption. Once it is close to time for primaries, you see politicians selling the properties, some of which they acquired in a corrupt manner, in order to find money to buy tickets, quote unquote. So that may have changed, because you'll be forced to convince, you have to move from political from one ward to the another ward, from local government to local government, depending on the level of election you're contesting. I mean, if you are contesting for councillorship, assuming local government election works, because as it is in Nigeria, there's no local government election does not work. It is an appendix of the governors. It's inside their pockets.
Oh.
If you are assuming it works, you are contesting for councillorship election, you have to deal with your ward alone. If you are going for local government election, you have to deal with the parties in your local government. So if you are contesting for House of Rep, you have to do with two local government or 3 local government, as the case may be. If you are dealing with senatorial elections, maybe 6 local governments, 7 local government, depending on the state you are in. If you're dealing with governorship, maybe 17 local government, 20 local government, 21, 30, 40, 44, as the case may be. Presidential election. How can you bribe the whole party members? The way it is for the ruling party may not be the way it will go for the opposition party. The ruling party has a stronger power of coercion, not coercion really, coercion. As it is now, the president can bring down orders on the national leadership of the party, and they will cascade the orders down to the low structure of the party and probably coerce the people to vote one way or the other. For the opposition parties, it may be more difficult because nobody is holding any power. I mean, as it were. They don't have the president. They may have one governor or the other, or member of the parliament or the other. But they do have such powers for one man or one woman to coerce everybody to move one way or the other. So it's more of an open system now. Then on the other side, you are talking about consensus. Consensus is the agreement of the people to say we don't need to go into voting. Let us agree that Uche will go for us. On the House of Rep, Deborah will go for us. The danger in consensus is that whether the consensus is able to build consensus. That is to say, in bringing out a consensus candidate, whether you have got the buy-in of every key member of the party. Because consensus is a business of these so-called stakeholders. Not every member of the party will be involved in the consensus candidate. It is the key stakeholders that will be involved in saying, we have agreed that this person will go for us. Let everybody support the person. Perchance, somebody says, I do not agree. It introduces crisis in the system because he would have been shouting exclusion. So, capacity for parties to bring in inclusion in building consensus in getting a candidate will become a key player in ensuring party stability. Otherwise, the moment you agree on a particular consensus that inclusivity or inclusion has not been brought in, it will split the party and crisis will start. And people will begin to port from one party to the other. So that is danger that potent. Another danger is ascendancy of godfatherism. Because people will now say, oh, if consensus, this is what do people want. For example, if you go to Abia State where they have a governor, or even Enugu here, if you say if you want to use consensus for Senate, you could be sure that the sitting governor will control who becomes the consensus candidate. And like I said, that is ascendancy and consolidation of godfatherism. Again and sensitively, this is one section that is going to collide directly with the provisions of the laws of the political party. You ordinarily argue that the Electoral Act will take precedence over the political party constitution. However, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria gives the political parties the powers to make their laws. And here is an Electoral Act that is inferior to the Constitution of the country, saying that the only way you can nominate candidates is through these two methods and nothing more. Chances are that some political parties, the moment a gazetted copy of this Amendment Act comes out, chances are that some political parties may go to court. The only problem is that, do we have enough time to allow the court to adjudicate and give an outcome before the election? But it might influence the overall outcome, because some people might go to court. Even when the candidate would have nominated, the court might turn around to say this part of the law is null and void. Besides, the judiciary itself, one arm of our electoral process is the judiciary, which has lately assumed a very big role in deciding who becomes our leaders against the expectations of the law. And to that extent, we have put on a searchlight on the judiciary, and Nigerians have gone away disappointed that judiciary, just like the legislature, has been captured by the executive. And this is part of the stumbling blocks in our march towards development, and towards democratic attainment, and towards overall emancipation of the society. So in summary, the 2026 Electoral Act, presumably, if what we assume is what is in there, is going to change the terrain, the turf for political parties in the way they nominate the candidates. And if that happens, it's going to change the colors of the political parties. One thing that you are sure to see is that more defections will follow immediately after, as this law has been passed now. As we and I speak, we hear that Adamawa state governor is about to defect to APC. There's rumor that Abia state governor is about to defect to APC. I say rumor.
Yeah.
The rumor is so thick out there. Maybe more political office holders are going to be cowed to defection due to the coming of the 2026 Electoral Act. So the way the political party politics is played has been changed by this law. That's the way it is.
Oh, thank you very much, Doc. But finally, just to get your opinion on the issue, just finally, away from all this, when one has an opportunity to interact with you, we want to extract all, but this is on a final note. We'll just have a few minutes to go. The director is already counting down, but I wouldn't let you go without getting your opinion on issue concerning former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai. And I ask, as Nasir El-Rufai confronts this ongoing ordeal, what message does he send about accountability, governance, and political resilience in Nigeria?
Okay,
just in a nutshell. Just in a nutshell, though.
Okay, so my opinions are as follows. In summary, that those who go to the kitchen should not be afraid of the heat.
Those who go to the kitchen shouldn't be afraid of the heat.
If you want to put yourself out for political office, you should be ready to be accountable to the people, even the smallest person. In fact, I hold a philosophy that the law should be changed to the fact that we presume guilt on anybody who has served guilt of embezzlement and mismanagement of office on everybody that has served the public, and let the burden of proof rest on the person to prove himself innocent. That way, if you're not ready to be transparent and accountable, you don't even go near. However, those who say the truth with bad faith are worse than liars. I repeat, if you say the truth in bad faith, you are worse than a liar. What is happening to rufai in my own mind is persecution, not a demand for accountability. The question you ask yourself, if rufai were made a minister, if he was made a minister of the Republic, would ICPC, EFCC, and DSS would they be after him? The timing of any event is important to the outcome of that event. It does seem to me that Madam El-Rufai knows too much for the ruling party to be to let him be free as things unfold. You see all these stories about accountability in Kaduna State. Really, every leader should be accountable. But due process must be followed in getting people to be accountable. Afterthoughts are not good for our system. El-Rufai was governor more than 3 years. He was even party to making Obasani the governor. They fell out. And now, 3 years after, we are talking about prosecuting El-Rufai. El-Rufai is not a saint, and we do not find saints in the political turf. But the truth of the matter is that if you bring a roll call of the governors of his class, he may be one of the best. How many governors took their biological children to public schools? Tell me any governor, any other governor you know in Nigeria that took his or her biological child to go to school in a public primary school or secondary school in Nigeria. How many governors in their time conducted local government election and allowed people to freely vote to the extent that his party lost 7 local governments? El-Rufai told the North that if nothing drastic happened, that the North could go and sit down about catching up with the South in terms of education and development. And he set primary 4 exam for teachers of primary school, and teachers could not pass the exam because the education the North was offering to the Talakawa Northerners was not education. He wanted a change. I am not here to sing his own lullaby. I am consoled by the fact that it will take a principality to confront a principality. I don't pity El-Rufai. As for pity, I don't pity him. He's a principality of his own. He has said it even by himself that he was principally party to bring in Bola Tinubu and Nigerians. Though he said he was sorry. But I'm sure that if less a person has criticized the president the way he has, the person would have been forgotten in the gulag by now. But it takes somebody in his own position to open his mouth and say, oh, X did not win the election. It was Y that won the election. He's happy to be won the election. Even though they found their way to making Bola Tinubu the president. Not my word, his word. He has, you see, part of the thing that is happening is distraction now. The El-Rufai issue will distract the opposition parties from the Electoral Act. They will trying to persecute him will distract the people from the real issues he has raised. He said the National Security Advisor, Office of National Security Advisor imported thallium sulfate, a rat killer, into Nigeria. It's a rodenticide. What is the NIS doing, National Security Advisor doing with rodenticide? Are they killing rats and rodents? Nobody is discussing it. He says the National Security Advisor wants to be president and he's doing everything possible to suppress the opposition. Nobody wants to discuss it. He says the National Security Advisor in a call has told the people to make sure that he was arrested. That call was intercepted. Now everybody's running to say, oh, he intercepted the call of a National Security Advisor. Nobody is now paying attention to what it is that National Security Advisor says. In law, whether you're a lawyer or not, if you have an evidence, irrespective of how you obtain the evidence has weight of evidence in law. If I tell somebody clandestinely to go and kill Uche, and maybe somebody bugged my phone when I was telling Uche and got a transcript, I am liable for attempted murder. Irrespective of the fact that the crime of bugging my phone is a totally different thing. And now we're no longer discussing that rule in saying ICPC go and arrest this man, make sure he's detained. And the role of his governor, who is implicating, coming into the fray. DSS is now filing charge against rufai in the courts. ICPC is waiting to arrest him at EFCC. Like I said, he has the capacity to deal with all these things. My worry is that they are wasting Nigerians' time.
They are wasting Nigerians' time.
They are wasting our time because they cannot convict him on the issue of intercepting calls. I listened to that interview very well. And I know, I don't need to be a lawyer to know that in criminal matters, you need to prove things beyond reasonable doubt. And material evidences are required. You have to show that the telephone line was bugged. You have to show the electronic device, the make and model of the electronic device. I have been in courts long enough to know that if you want to prove crime using electronic system, you have to prove the type of, if it is laptop used, what type of laptop, the model of laptop, the time that the hacking took place, and where it took place, and who actually did it. And I saw the charge saying rufai and others. There's nothing like others in law who are at large without material names. So I do think that public offices, with due respect to the offices, I'm not a solicitor for rufai, but I'm worried that whoever does not support the current leadership gets persecuted and hounded to a stop. Rufai has the capacity to deal with his problem, but we cannot live in a country in 2026 where the powers that be try to suppress every dissenting opinion that doesn't go its way, whereas those that are singing on your mandate, even when their cases are so clear, are now blessed and canonized. And this is a country that we want to bequeath our children. So, like I said, I don't pity rufai. The reason is that I'm sure he has the capacity to deal with his co-travelers. But as to what it is, it's a clear political persecution. Let me advise my brothers and sisters who are in public systems to know that what goes around comes around. If you are a security agent, probably because I have probably spoken to power in ANEKE TV, you think you can come after me. Some of us have made up our mind to die even before death. So, but what you should know is that the cup with which you dish to another person might become the cup from which you will drink tomorrow. Let us struggle to stop personality worship and begin to deal with issues and propose things that will engender good society, so that generations that will come will know that their forefathers tried to build a better society for them to live in, so that we'll stop all this tendency for Nigerians to migrate to even countries that are very uncomfortable for them to live in.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Alright, thank you very much, Dr. Chigozie Anado, a development scientist and public affairs analyst. And also thank you, viewer, for staying with us here on Sunrise. Please don't forget to reach us on our social media platforms, all at ANEKE TV, or call our phone number 070-3043-7110. I am Deborah Mwakuba.
All right, Dr. Narado, thank you very much for those in-depth analysis. We are grateful for your time.
Yeah, Uche and Deborah and our viewers, the pleasure is mine to be here.
All right.
Yes, whatever Nigeria throws at us, let us be courageous to withstand the pressure and do the right thing.
All right, thank you very much, Doc. And Uche Osai, on behalf of all of us here at Sunrise at ANEKE TV, we say thank you for watching and keep watching till we come your way same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.